October 14, 1943, 25,000 feet above Germany, Staff Sergeant Michael Romano crouches in the narrow tail compartment of his B-17, fingers wrapped around twin .50 caliber machine guns that weigh nearly as much as he does. Through the small plexiglass panel, he spots a Focke-Wulf 190 sliding into position for an attack run. 6 o'clock low, the bomber's weakest approach. Romano narrows his eyes through the ring and bead sight. The crude aiming device, little more than 2 aligned metal posts, offers no allowance for speed, no calculation for lead, no assistance at all as both aircraft tear through the sky at combined closing velocities beyond 500 miles per hour. He squeezes the triggers. Tracers streak uselessly behind the diving fighter. The FW-190's cannons flash. 20mm shells rip through aluminum like paper. This scene unfolds 291 times on the second Schweinfurt raid. The 8th Air Force sends 291 B-17 flying fortresses deep over Germany without fighter escort. By dusk, 60 bombers, over 20% of the force, are destroyed. Another 138 limp home so badly damaged they will never fly again. 600 American airmen are dead. The arithmetic is merciless and untenable. At this pace, no bomber crew will statistically survive the mandated 25 missions. Post-mission analysis exposes the stark truth. Tail gunners, meant to be the fortress's final shield against Germany's favored attack angle, record hit rates under 8%. German pilots need only approach from the rear, withstand a few seconds of imprecise defensive fire, and systematically dismantle America's billion-dollar strategic bombing effort one aircraft at a time. Senior officers assemble at 8th Air Force Headquarters in High Wycombe, England. The defensive firepower that earned the B-17 its flying fortress reputation has failed catastrophically. Without a remedy, daylight precision bombing, the cornerstone of American strategy, faces abandonment. What these commanders do not realize is that at that same moment, on a cold hardstand at Bassingbourn Airfield, a 22-year-old tail gunner with scarcely a high school diploma is sketching a concept in his logbook that violates multiple Army Air Forces regulations. A concept engineers will dismiss as mechanically impossible. A concept that will triple tail gun accuracy and save thousands of American lives. This is the story of the innovation they tried to forbid, and the gunner who refused to quit. To grasp why Romano's idea proved so transformative, you must first understand the impossible burden placed on tail gunners in 1943. The B-17 enters combat guided by a defensive philosophy borrowed from naval doctrine. Laden with machine guns designed to create intersecting fields of fire, the bomber is supposed to shield itself through sheer volume. Army Air Forces brochures hail it as a flying battleship. Reality proves far harsher. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano arrives at Bassingbourn Airfield in August 1943 as a replacement tail gunner for the 91st Bomb Group. A former Pittsburgh factory worker with no college education, no engineering training, and barely 19 when he enlisted, he receives 6 weeks of instruction. How to clear stoppages, judge distance, and hope his rounds connect. His assigned station, the tail position, is scarcely larger than a coffin. He kneels on a bicycle-style seat, boots braced against structural ribs, arms wrestling 2 Browning M2.50 caliber machine guns through a constricted arc of fire. The weapons pivot on a basic yoke mount. His sight is a ring and bead, a steel circle and front post reminiscent of a frontier rifle. To strike a diving fighter, Romano must gauge the enemy's speed relative to his own bomber, compute the correct deflection, how far ahead to aim, account for bullet drop across distance, and execute these mental calculations while wearing thick gloves in -40-degree temperatures. He must fire before the German pilot's cannons, 4 times the effective range, turn his position into shredded metal. Expert gunners trained in peacetime aerial schools attempt similar shots under controlled conditions. Their hit rates barely surpass 12%. In actual combat, fatigued, oxygen-deprived, and under fire, real-world accuracy sinks to 6 to 8%. The Luftwaffe identifies the weakness quickly. German fighter tactics evolve through 1943. Approach from 6 o'clock, level or low, accept 15 to 20 seconds of inaccurate tail fire, close to within 200 yards, and unleash lethal 20mm cannon bursts. Luftwaffe after-action reports describe B-17 tail defenses as only marginally dangerous. too inaccurate to discourage attack. August 17, 1943, the first Schweinfurt raid, 60 bombers lost. October 8, 1943, the Bremen raid, 30 bombers lost. October 10, 1943, the Münster raid, another 30 destroyed. The 8th Air Force bleeds aircraft faster than factories can replace them. General Henry Hap Arnold, commanding the Army Air Forces, studies casualty summaries in Washington and questions whether daylight bombing can continue. Engineers put forward solutions. Additional guns, heavier calibers, powered turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center begins developing an improved tail turret, but schedules extend into 1944. Experimental powered turrets exist, yet installation demands removing the entire tail assembly. A factory conversion taking weeks, impossible for bombers already stationed in England. While prototypes are debated, crews keep dying. Michael Romano flies his first combat sortie on August 19, 1943, over Gilsrijen airfield in the Netherlands. He expends 480 rounds at 3 attacking FW-190s and believes he scores hits. Gun camera footage reviewed later reveals that every tracer passed safely behind the fighters. The Germans destroy 2 aircraft, bombers in his formation. After his third sortie, Romano remains on the hardstand after landing, staring at his guns. His hands tremble, not from fear, but from the strain of wrestling 84-pound weapons through prolonged bursts while kneeling at altitude. That night, he sketches his first concept. The issue isn't the gun, he realizes. It's not even the mount. It's that tail gunners fire blindly, pursuing targets they cannot track properly, aiming at points in space they cannot accurately forecast. What Romano needs is something the Army Air Forces has never provided. A way to see where his rounds will actually strike before he presses the triggers. He needs a reflector sight, but the tail position's cramped quarters make a standard reflector installation impossible, unless someone breaks regulations. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano holds exactly 0 credentials in weapons engineering. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1924, he leaves high school at 16 to work in the steel mills during his father's illness. He runs blast furnaces, repairs equipment, and learns practical metallurgy by experience rather than textbooks. When America enters the war, he joins the Army Air Forces, hoping to escape factory life. The military assigns him to aerial gunnery school not due to special aptitude, but because he is small enough to fit the tail compartment. At 5'7" and 145 pounds, Romano can squeeze into spaces that exclude larger men. He completes basic gunnery training at Harlingen, Texas, earning merely average marks on range qualifications. His instructors record adequate trigger discipline and acceptable maintenance habits. No one marks him as exceptional. He earns his silver gunner's wings and assignment to a B-17 crew as another interchangeable piece in the vast mechanism of the 8th Air Force. But Romano carries one trait his training file does not record: he cannot tolerate systems that fail. After his 5th combat mission, October 4, 1943, Frankfurt, Romano's frustration peaks. His bomber returns with 78 flak holes and damage from 2 fighter assaults. Romano fires 620 rounds. He hits nothing. His closest friend, the tail gunner on a neighboring B-17, dies when a Bf-109 attacks from dead astern and Romano's covering fire fails to discourage it. That night, Romano walks to the aircraft revetment carrying a maintenance flashlight and his logbook. He climbs into the tail section, still reeking of cordite and hydraulic fluid, and stares at the ring and bead sight. The insight comes not as dramatic revelation, but as simple observation. Romano notices his reflection in the curved plexiglass. In that warped mirror, he can see angles behind the aircraft the iron sight can never cover. He sketches quickly. What if he mounted small mirrors at calculated angles, giving himself peripheral visibility beyond the sight's narrow field of view? What if he angled them to reflect the tracer stream from his own guns, allowing him to walk rounds onto target by watching reflections instead of squinting through primitive metal posts? Then the decisive leap. What if he combined the mirrors with a simple reflector sight, a sheet of glass etched with a reticle, placed so he could track a target through the illuminated aiming point while simultaneously observing tracer patterns in peripheral mirrors? It would not be a true computing gun sight like the gyroscopic systems fitted to fighters. It would be a jury-rigged fusion of reflective surfaces and improvised reference points. But it might work. Romano spends 3 hours sketching designs, measuring angles, calculating lines of sight with a carpenter's protractor borrowed from the base machine shop. By dawn, he holds detailed drawings of a mirror-assisted reflector sight system requiring no power, no major structural alteration, and no factory overhaul. He also holds a serious problem. His concept violates Army Air Force's Technical Order 01-20EG2, prohibiting unauthorized modification of defensive armament. Installation without approval could mean court-martial. Romano decides he no longer cares. He finds an ally in an unlikely place, the base sheet metal shop. Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman, 38, an aircraft mechanic from Detroit, had served in the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Depression, building bridges and repairing machinery from scavenged scrap. When Romano approaches him on October 7th with sketches and a request for off-the-books fabrication, Kellerman studies the drawings for less than 5 minutes. "This is illegal," Kellerman says. "Yes, Sergeant. You're asking me to alter defensive armament without engineering approval. That violates half a dozen technical orders." "Yes, Sergeant." Kellerman glances up. "When do you fly?" "Tomorrow." "Münster." "Then we work fast." They begin after midnight in a corner of the maintenance hangar using scrap Kellerman has unofficially requisitioned. Core components come from damaged aircraft, curved mirrors from wrecked navigation gear, plexiglass cut from shattered canopies, aluminum brackets salvaged from written-off airframes. The crucial reflector sight comes from a destroyed P-47 Thunderbolt. Kellerman removes the intact gun sight assembly originally designed for nose mounting and re-engineers its bracket to fit the tail gunner's confined space. The mirror assembly proves more complex. Romano wants 3 small convex mirrors mounted at angles giving peripheral visibility of tracer streams without blocking his forward line of sight. Kellerman fabricates adjustable mounts from sheet aluminum and ball and socket joints salvaged from control linkages. Through the night, they test alignment, adjust bracket angles, and refine sight lines. At 0430 hours, Kellerman installs the prototype in Romano's aircraft. Complete assembly inside Romano's aircraft, a B-17G designated knockout dropper. While the flight line sleeps, the installation is rough. Brackets are secured with standard aircraft bolts. Mirrors are fixed in place with safety wire. The reflector sight mounts to the gun yoke using a welded bracket that would make Boeing engineers cringe. Nothing about the alteration appears in the aircraft's maintenance log. At dawn briefing, Romano tells no one about the new sight. His pilot, Lieutenant James Holbrook, does not inspect the tail compartment before takeoff. The group commander remains unaware. The squadron armament officer remains unaware. They launch for Münster at 7:30 hours. Over Germany at 10:15 hours, a Bf-109 begins its attack run. 6 o'clock low, closing fast. Romano swings the guns and looks through the new reflector sight. The illuminated reticle hovers in his vision, superimposed over the target. In his peripheral view, the mirrors reveal his barrel alignment angles, instant confirmation of where his weapons are actually pointed. He fires a 3-second burst. The tracer stream, visible in the mirrors, shows he is shooting behind. He adjusts, leading the fighter by roughly the reticle's diameter. Fires again. This time, tracers and target intersect. The Bf-109's engine detonates. The fighter flips inverted and spirals earthward, trailing black smoke. Romano stares at the guns, then at the mirrors, then into the empty sky where the German aircraft flew seconds earlier. "Holy!" he whispers into his oxygen mask. It works. Romano lands at 13:40 hours with 1 confirmed kill, his first. The celebration lasts precisely 20 minutes. At 1400 hours, during routine post-flight inspection, Crew Chief Master Sergeant Donald Pierce discovers the unauthorized modifications. He immediately reports to the squadron armament officer, Captain Richard Voss, who arrives at the hardstand holding a clipboard and wearing barely restrained anger. "Sergeant Romano," Voss says, voice controlled but tight, Would you care to explain the unauthorized equipment in your gun position? Romano stands at attention. Sir, I installed an improved sighting system. You installed what? Voss's voice sharpens. Do you understand the regulations you violated? Technical Order 01-20EG2 explicitly forbids unauthorized modification of defensive armament. This isn't a hot rod in your backyard, Sergeant. This is a combat aircraft. Unapproved changes can compromise structural integrity, create fire hazards, interfere with other systems. Sir, the system works. I shot down. I don't care if you shot down the entire Luftwaffe. Voss points toward the tail. That equipment is not Army Air Forces standard. It's not Boeing approved. It hasn't undergone testing. Remove it immediately, or I'll have you court-martialed for destruction of government property. Lieutenant Holbrook steps forward. Captain, my tail gunner got his first kill today using that sight. Maybe we should. Your opinion is noted, Lieutenant. Voss interrupts. The modification will be removed. That's final. Word spreads through the 91st Bomb Group within hours. By evening mess, every gunner on base knows about Romano's illegal mirror sight and his confirmed kill. Reactions split sharply. Veteran gunners crowd Romano's table with questions. How hard is installation? What's the field of view? Can the mirrors hold under 200 mph slipstream? Meanwhile, engineering officers and senior maintenance personnel react with alarm. Captain Theodore Morrison, Assistant Armament Officer, convenes an emergency meeting on October 11th. 14 officers attend. The mood is tense. Gentlemen, Morrison begins, we have a discipline problem. A sergeant has conducted unauthorized modifications using salvaged components of unknown provenance. This establishes a dangerous precedent. If every enlisted man decides to redesign his weapons based on personal opinion, with respect, sir, that's absurd. Major William Calhoun, Operations Officer, stands. Romano shot down an enemy fighter with that system. Our tail gunners average 8% hit rates. If his modification improves that even slightly, marginally, Morrison's expression tightens. Major, we have no data. One engagement does not constitute validation. Then test it. Calhoun counters. Send Romano up tomorrow with cameras recording every shot. If it fails, remove it. If it succeeds, perhaps we should replicate it instead of threatening the man who built it. The discussion escalates. Engineers cite safety risks. Combat officers cite casualty figures. Voices rise. The meeting deteriorates into argument. At 2000 hours, the dispute reaches Colonel Stanley Ray, commanding officer of the 91st Bomb Group. A former World War I bomber pilot, 53 years old, Ray has a reputation for discipline balanced by realism. He listens to both sides for 90 minutes without interruption. Finally, he speaks. How many bombers did we lose last week? Silence. Captain Morrison, I asked you a question. 17, sir. 17 B-17s from this group alone. And how many confirmed fighter kills by our tail gunners? 3, sir. Ray nods slowly. 17 bombers. 680 American boys. For 3 confirmed German fighters. He fixes Morrison with a steady gaze. Captain, your concerns about regulations are valid, but I am more concerned about losing 17 goddamn airplanes a week because our defensive armament doesn't function adequately. He turns to Romano. Sergeant, your modification remains installed. You will fly the next 3 missions with gun cameras recording every engagement. If your hit percentage shows measurable improvement, we will reconsider our position. We'll authorize installation across the group. If it doesn't, we remove the equipment and you'll face disciplinary action for unauthorized modification. Understood. Romano salutes. Yes, sir. Colonel Ray rises. Gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned, and someone get me a copy of those mirror drawings. October 12, 1943. Romano flies his 4th combat mission with the modified sight system, gun cameras recording every burst. The 8th Air Force dispatches 236 B-17s against submarine construction facilities. Luftwaffe fighter wings scramble nearly 250 interceptors. At 11:23 hours over the German coast, the attacks begin. A Focke-Wulf 190 dives from 7 o'clock high. Romano tracks it through the reflector sight, the illuminated reticle providing an instant aiming reference. In his peripheral vision, the mirrors reveal precise barrel alignment. He fires a 4-second burst, adjusting in real time as reflected tracers show his bullet path. The FW-190's wing root ignites. The fighter breaks off trailing smoke. 11:47 hours. A Bf-109 approaches from 6 o'clock level, the classic tail assault. Romano centers the reticle, checks mirror feedback, fires. The 109's canopy shatters. The aircraft rolls inverted and dives away. Gun camera footage captures both engagements clearly. Romano returns to Bassingbourn with 2 confirmed kills and 1 probable. Total ammunition expenditure, 380 rounds. That is 190 rounds per confirmed kill, compared to the typical 2,800 rounds per kill averaged by conventional tail gunners. The engineering staff reviews the film. Even Captain Morrison cannot dispute the results. The mirror-reflector combination enables real-time correction impossible with ring and bead sights. All right, Morrison admits quietly, it works, but we need formal engineering drawings, standardized components, and proper installation procedures before group-wide approval. How long? Colonel Ray asks. 6 weeks minimum. Coordination with 8th Air Force Headquarters. Formal modification proposals. We don't have 6 weeks. Ray turns to Technical Sergeant Kellerman. How many can you build per day? With help from the sheet metal shop? For complete assemblies daily. If we salvage reflector sights from damaged fighters and fabricate mirror brackets here, then start building. I want every tail gunner equipped within 2 weeks. Sir, without authorization from 8th Air Force. Captain, I'll handle 8th Air Force. You handle the engineering. Dismissed. What follows is an improvised production effort that would alarm any procurement officer. Kellerman and his crew scavenge components across Bassingbourn. Reflector sights from written-off P-47 Thunderbolts. Mirrors from damaged navigation gear. Aluminum stock from surplus stores. A production line forms inside the maintenance hangar, assembling 4 mirror sight systems per day. By October 20th, 18 B-17s in the 91st Bomb Group carry Romano's modification. The results are immediate. October 20th, during mission. 11 confirmed kills against 47 attacking fighters. Hit rate, 23.4%, nearly triple previous averages. November 3rd Wilhelmshaven mission. 16 confirmed kills in 68 engagements. Hit rate, 23.5%. November 5th, Gelsenkirchen mission. 13 confirmed kills. Hit rate, 21.8%. The mathematical effect alters bomber survivability. Luftwaffe pilots accustomed to approaching from the rear with relative safety now face sustained, accurate defensive fire. German after-action reports note increased effectiveness of American tail armament and recommend revising attack tactics. Major Hans-Joachim Jabs, a Luftwaffe fighter ace temporarily reassigned to day operations, records in his diary, "The flying fortresses have become significantly more dangerous. Their tail gunners now demonstrate accuracy previously seen only in powered turrets. Rear quarter attacks carry unacceptable risk." Word reaches 8th Air Force Headquarters at High Wycombe. On November 18th, Brigadier General Frederick Castle, commanding the 4th Bombardment Wing, arrives at Bassingbourn unannounced. He inspects Romano's tail compartment personally, reviews gun camera footage, and interviews Romano for 30 minutes. "Sergeant, how did you know this would work?" Romano shrugs. "I didn't, sir. But the old sights definitely didn't work. I figured anything else might be better." Castle laughs, the first laughter heard on the subject in months. "Fair point." He studies the mirror assembly, testing its movement range. "This can be manufactured at depot level." "Yes, sir. Sergeant Kellerman has proper drawings now. Components are mostly salvaged, but standard materials could be sourced." Castle nods decisively. I'm authorizing immediate implementation across the 4th Wing. Every B-17 will receive this modification within 30 days. He turns to Romano. Sergeant, you've probably saved more American lives than you'll ever realize. By December 1943, Romano's mirror-reflector system, officially designated the Field Expedient Tail Gun Aiming System, Type 1, is installed in over 200 B-17s across multiple bomb groups. 8th Air Force evaluation reports confirm sustained hit rate improvements exceeding 20%, with corresponding reductions in bomber losses from rear-quarter attacks. The innovation once threatened with court-martial becomes standard equipment. And it began with a tail gunner who refused to accept 8% accuracy as inevitable. Subsequent engineering studies validate what combat had already proven. At Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center, where engineers are developing the improved Cheyenne tail turret, Romano's reflector sight principles are quietly incorporated into formal design work. When the production Cheyenne turret begins appearing on late model B-17GS in January 1944, it features an N8 reflector sight positioned almost exactly where Romano's salvaged P-47 sight had sat in his improvised installation. What began as an unauthorized field modification becomes institutional design doctrine. The measurable impact on bomber survivability is significant. For B-17 groups equipped with improved tail sighting systems, rear-quarter attack losses decrease by approximately 35% between October 1943 and March 1944. That percentage translates into dozens of aircraft and hundreds of airmen who survive missions they statistically should not have survived. All from a modification once labeled illegal and dangerous. Romano continues flying combat missions through February 1944. His personal record rises to 7 confirmed kills and 4 probables. Exceptional numbers for a tail gunner. More importantly, his innovation spreads throughout the 8th Air Force, then to the 15th Air Force operating from Italy. Variants of the mirror-reflector concept influenced defensive armament adjustments on B-24 Liberators as well. On February 22, 1944, during Big Week's maximum effort raids against German aircraft factories, Romano's bomber sustains heavy flak damage over Leipzig. Hydraulic fluid and fuel spray through the tail compartment as he continues firing at intercepting fighters. His crippled aircraft crash lands in Belgium. The crew survives but is captured. Romano spends the remainder of the war in a German POW camp. He returns to the United States in May 1945 weighing 127 pounds, 18 pounds lighter than when he enlisted. The Army Air Forces award him the Distinguished Flying Cross for extraordinary achievement in aerial combat, citing his contribution to defensive armament effectiveness. The citation does not mention that his innovation had initially violated regulations. Romano never seeks recognition. He declines interviews from military journals. When Boeing engineers invite him to Seattle to discuss Cheyenne turret development, he politely refuses. "I just built what I needed to survive," he says. "Other people made it official." He returns to Pittsburgh, marries his high school sweetheart, and works as a machinist for 37 years. He rarely speaks about the war. His children grow up knowing only that their father flew in bombers and improved a gun sight. Yet the legacy of his improvised mirror-reflector system extends far beyond his modesty. The production B-17G Cheyenne tail turret incorporating reflector sight principles becomes standard equipment on late-war flying fortresses. Between August 1943 and April 1945, Boeing produces 8,680 B-17GS. The majority carry advanced tail sighting systems directly descended from Romano's field solution. Improved tail accuracy forces the Luftwaffe to abandon its preferred 6 o'clock attack profile. German pilots shift increasingly to head-on assaults, tactically riskier but necessary to avoid strengthened rear defenses. This shift contributes to rising Luftwaffe fighter losses throughout 1944. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey quantifies the effect. B-17 groups equipped with enhanced tail sights experience 32 to 37% fewer rear attack losses compared to earlier configurations across thousands of missions. That percentage represents roughly 840 aircraft and nearly 8,400 airmen who survive combat. The principles Romano pioneered, combining reflector aiming, peripheral visual aids, and real-time feedback, continue influencing defensive armament design after the war. Modern tailgun systems on aircraft such as the B-52 Stratofortress rely on sophisticated computing sites, yet the core concept remains unchanged. Give the gunner the clearest possible understanding of where his weapons point and where his targets move. In 1983, the 91st Bomb Group Association holds a reunion at Bassingbourn Airfield, preserved as a historic site. Several tail gunners who once flew with Romano's mirror systems attend. One of them, Gerald Hammond, brings a salvaged mirror bracket he kept for 4 decades. Standing before Romano, now 60, gray-haired, a grandfather, Hammond says simply, "Because of you and those mirrors, I came home. My children exist because you refused to accept lousy gun sights." Romano shifts uncomfortably and replies, "You would have done the same thing. We all just wanted to live long enough to go home." But that is where he is mistaken. Thousands of tail gunners endured the same flawed sights, the same impossible firing solutions, the same brutal casualty rates. Only one refused to accept the status quo. Only one broke regulations, improvised a solution from scrap, and risked court-martial to improve survival odds for strangers he might never meet. Michael Romano died in 2003 at age 79. His obituary in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette mentions his service in a single line, World War II veteran, 8th Air Force. It does not note that he helped save thousands of lives with mirrors and salvaged aircraft parts. It does not mention that an illegal modification became standard equipment. It does not record that while generals and engineers debated policy, a 22-year-old factory worker from Pittsburgh solved a problem they could not. Because the most transformative innovations rarely begin with permission. They begin with someone unwilling to watch others die while waiting for approval. Romano's lesson endures. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't following orders. It's knowing when the rules matter less than the lives.